Hey everyone, I'm Peachy Pie, though that's not my real name. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. This is a mini applause for you and for me because I've been having a tough week. And we get an applause because we made it. No matter what we're going through, no matter what's happening around us, we made it. We made it through yesterday and we made it through today. And since we'll both probably make it through tomorrow, why don't you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be here when I make it through tomorrow as well. And when I post another video. Thank you so much for joining me. This topic today, we are not actually having a trigger warning because we are talking about abuse prevention. And this is a topic that is especially close to my heart because I really believe that we can prevent abuse in most, if not all cases, and help rehabilitate abusers in all cases. Okay, so no trigger warning, you can stay and watch this video. But in case you don't feel like listening to stuff about abuse, you're welcome to check other videos on my channel as you see fit, or you can retreat to the entirety of YouTube if you just don't like my content. Please like my content. Anyway, so the prevention strategies I looked at included talking about or looking at prevention strategies in the following areas, right? I looked at religious abuse, environmental abuse and governmental abuse and corruption, child abuse, intimate partner violence and domestic abuse, substance abuse, financial abuse, elderly abuse, disability abuse, desensitization, which as we've covered is when you get so used to abuse you don't even notice it happening around you. We've also identified self-destructive behavior as self-abuse, and minority group abuse we've also spoken about, and we've spoken a little bit here and there about child abuse as well, which I think I've mentioned already. But what I've written down is a list of things that I noticed when searching for prevention methods that were common in all of the different types of abuse. This is from governmental abuse to child abuse to intimate partner violence to environmental abuse. Okay, so these are 10 things that I discovered that were common with all types of prevention. Okay, first of all, number one, know your rights. Know your human rights, know your environmental rights, know your governmental rights, know your rights. So you probably want to grab a copy of your constitution to make sure you know what your rights are as a person or as a citizen of your country. Number two, educate your community, speak out and create awareness and make healthy family and citizen dynamics the norm by teaching it everywhere from schools to workplaces. Number three, educate yourself on what is abuse to combat desensitization. Number four, don't isolate yourself ever. Abuse most common happens in isolated places. So be a part of any community, and when victims speak up, the abusers are most often held accountable by that society. And if not, you can still reach out and get some help. So don't isolate yourself. Whatever you do, don't isolate. Okay, number five, volunteer. This helps with getting the community involved in your initiative, and also helps to create awareness as well. Then number six is deal with societal stigmas and gender roles, especially those around mental health illness, counseling, sexism, all of those issues which are genuinely, and also like abuse of minority groups and abuse of the poor or stigma against the poor, which are often the root of violence or abuse against all types of people and all types of groups. Number seven, reform policy needs work. We need reform. We need zero tolerance policies for abuse in so many different areas. And I think you can agree with that because like the research is actually saying that we need reform. And then number eight is accountability is also needed. We need to have more accountability and people owning up to the abusive behaviors, no matter where they come from, whether it's government. And we need to see that as a society, these people are being held accountable for their actions. Right? Number nine is institutions that hold abusers accountable are needed, or they need government funding to work better. So we need to push our government to actually funnel money into these kind of institutions to help prevent abuse in every area. Okay, number 10, The community needs to come together and end violence by standing up for victims. If the community stands up to the abuser, they will be way more likely to correct their ways. This can be in the workplace or in a religious sphere or in society. So we really need that accountability in the community as well to really be up. And these are things, like I said, that were common with every different type of abuse that I took a look at. And that's a lot of research, let me tell you. It took a while. And that's why this video is so delayed. But anyway, so before we move on, I want to take a look at two more things, right? That I think that will really help improve society. Number one is that we need to prevent victim blaming. And how do we do that? We believe or support victims and ensure that they are not responsible for the abuse. Like, ensure them you're not responsible, right? Then we should not make excuses and don't accept abusers' excuses for why they abuse. And then we should change the question from why doesn't a victim leave to why doesn't the abuser change, so that we can put the responsibility back on the abuser. And we should hold media and government accountable and maybe like write to them or start petitions to change policy so that they don't actually blame victims for the abuse, right? We should speak about abuse in a way that holds the abuser accountable. Instead of saying Mary is an abuse victim or Mary has been abused, we can rather say that John has abused Mary. So that can help shift our thoughts and focus, right? Rape jokes and abuse jokes are not funny. We should tell people to stop and cut it out. It's really sad. It's not funny and it's like disturbing. Okay, also don't support media, celebrity, brands, advertisers, etc. who are shaming victims or encourage victim shaming. Tom Cruise, I'm looking at you. Yeah, Scientology guys. Anyway, educate yourself and others about domestic abuse and violence against victims and talk about what consent looks like, because this is important. A lot of people don't actually know that consent is important for any type of relationship, which is kind of strange. Anyway, and then discourage children from learning habits of victim blaming. Teach them to take responsibility for their own actions and stand up against injustice. And then also set a good example for them to follow. Now, the second thing that we want to take a look at, right, is we want to take a look at abuse reform. So we want to prevent abuse by putting a lot more time, effort, and energy into abuser rehabilitation, right? And how does that look? That looks like we need to try and make sure that programs are genderless, so abusers feel more comfortable to step forward and get help. And then we need to create awareness for what the profile of an abuser looks like and what a victim of abuse looks like, so that people can stand up when necessary. We also need to make sure that these programs are readily available, and then include therapy and counseling for victims and abusers, target the stigmas of counseling and mental illness and gender roles and accountability, and also for forgiveness, target the stigma of forgiving an abuser and for allowing them to reform, because it must be really scary as well to admit that you are guilty of abusing someone and then have to go back into society and people now know that you're an abuser. So if we can make this an easier process for abuser, they are more likely to reform. Anyway, we need a stronger justice system for protecting victims and holding abusers accountable. And then we should be teaching in schools and universities, governmental and religious institutions, what a healthy family model looks like. So I really think that once we start doing these types of things, we'll start to see an improvement in how abuse is dealt with, and we'll start to see a decrease in victims of abuse and decrease in people getting away with abuse. But so thank you so much for joining me. I do apologize for the delay in these 16 days of activism videos. It has taken me so long to do this one, but it's really important to me, which is why all the research was completely worth it. Please consider supporting TMCs and support abuse victim support organizations like Rise Against Domestic Violence and other organizations as well, which I've linked in the description. Pop a candle in the comment section, and thank you so much for joining me. Have a phenomenal evening.